Planning and Zoning meeting for December 18th. If everyone please rise and join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lauren, could you do roll call, please?
Absolutely. Chairman David Leland.
Here.
Vice Chair Ross Shellingford.
Here.
Commissioner June Perrin. Here. Commissioner Philip Marquis.
Here.
Commissioner Ray Nazareth.
Here.
Adam Miller, alternate 1. And Gary Specht, alternate 2. Okay.
Committee, do you want to get everybody?
You can approve the minutes first.
You want to do the minutes first?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I need a motion to approve our minutes from the November 26th Planning and Zoning meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 26, 2019 Planning and Zoning meeting.
Yeah, I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll go ahead and just correct for the record, today's date is the 16th. It's not our normal
Sorry
meeting
about
date.
that.
No problem. If we could, several of these items on tonight's agenda are quasi-judicial. If we could have everybody who plans to testify on any of the items on tonight's agenda, please stand and raise your right hand for me. Do you all swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so tonight, the first item on our agenda is application number 19-096.
And I'll turn back to the board. This is, as the chair indicated, a variance application. I need to ask if there are any ex parte communications with regard to VAR 19-096.
No?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, village staff we do have a presentation. First of all, we're going to go over the criteria for granting a variance, which is set forth at 2632 F6B. Special conditions and circumstances should exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved. Those special circumstances should not result from actions of the applicant. It should not confer on the applicant any special privilege. A literal interpretation of the provisions of this division should deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. It must be the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land. It must be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this division, and it should not be injurious to the area involved or detrimental to the public welfare. So having said that, the address in question is 61 Sparrow Drive. The applicants are looking for a 1.04 foot side yard setback for a shed. The shed is highlighted in blue on the survey. It abuts the side property line right here. The required setback by code is 10 feet, resulting in a variance of 8.96 feet. The applicant has asserted that the shed has to be located in the proposed location due to the 25-foot drainage and maintenance easement located in the rear yard and the location of other existing structures on the property. The applicant further asserts that the shed has been located in the same spot for the past 20 years. An additional reason for the current location is that the property owners both have health conditions, and the current location allows them the most practical access. The applicant contends that this is the minimum variance which will allow reasonable access and safety for the property owners. The village sent out the required 300-foot notice to all residents within the 300-foot radius of the subject property, notifying homeowners of the variance request. The village did not receive any responses either supporting or objecting to the application. In addition, no letters were provided by the applicant supporting the request. Village staff is not recommending approval because staff believes that no special condition or circumstance exists which are not applicable to other lands. Condition is the result of actions of the applicant. Special privileges would be conferred on the applicant that are denied to other lands. Literal interpretation of the code does not deprive the applicant of rights enjoyed by other lands in the same zoning district, and it would not be the minimum variance necessary to allow reasonable use of the property. The shed is shown in the picture, and you can see that it's very close to the neighbor's fence, approximately 1.04 feet off the property line. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I see that the applicants have walked in also. If you have any questions for them.
So the applicant is here.
I think they need to be sworn. They came
Do you
in.
wish to make any comments?
Can you
Go to the mic,
approach the
please.
podium, and I also need to swear you in. I think you came in after we were sworn in. Can you state your name for the record, ma'am?
The name is Frida Laurent.
Can you raise your right hand for me? This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Do you have a presentation, or are you just here for questions?
Actually, I don't have any question. It's just that I was astounded when I heard that I was out of code when we were told that the shed does not meet requirement, because when I bought the house, I wasn't aware that I could not have the shed there, and the shed had been there for 20 years. I've lived at the same location for the last 20 years. I was just surprised when I was told that we have to do something with the shed, and I really don't, I mean, we have to do what we have to do, but I was hoping that because we had been there for so long and we bought the property as it is, that we would be granted a variance to stay there.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Ross?
No questions or comments.
I have no questions.
I have a question, ma'am. You said the shed was there for 20 years, and when you bought the property, the previous owner didn't tell you about it?
No, we weren't told anything about the shed. I mean, nothing specific about the shed.
So basically, you didn't know that you were in violation of the code?
No, not for 20 years.
Okay. And also, did you have any neighbor support? Because, I mean, it seems that the shed is so close to the neighbor and the fence.
No one has ever said anything, really.
Nobody said anything
No.
or complained or nothing? Okay. And also, one last question is, do you feel like you're a victim in a way? I mean, you didn't know about it, and then all of a sudden they come in and they cited you for it?
Well, definitely. If I was there for 20 years, how is it that you have a village, you have staff that are hired, that are inspecting the village, you know, on a regular basis, and all of a sudden, after 20 years, you're told that your shed is not meeting the codes?
Right. Thank you. That'll be all.
Jim?
No, I think that Ray basically covered any questions that I had, but the shed's been there when you moved in, okay.
Do we have any comments from the public with your arm raised in the air? If you'd step up to the podium.
And state your name and address for the record, please.
Barbara Grinder, 312 Preserve Way, Royal Palm. We live directly across the canal from Mr. and Mrs. Laurent. And yes, the shed has been there. We've been there 16 years, and the shed has been there. And as far as we know, no one's ever complained about it. It doesn't, you know, it's not an eyesore particularly. It's just always been there. So we assumed everything was all right. And I don't see why they wouldn't have assumed the same thing. So, okay.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no further questions or comments, can I get a motion?
Can I just make one quick question to Kevin,
Yes.
if I may? Kevin, is there a rough cost to what it would take to tear down the shed? Because it seems like the folks here didn't know about it. 20 years.
No, we don't have a rough cost, but that, you know, they'd have to get a company to come and move it, which would be an expense, and it probably would be more than $300 or $400.
That would be a solution to mitigate or to basically solve the problem. Okay, possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And okay, all right. Thank you. That's.
Mm-hmm.
I ask again, can I get a motion either way?
I'll make a motion to approve application number 19-096.
Can I get a second?
I'll make a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is application number 17-0036.
Okay, yes. The site is highlighted in red on the screen. It is south of Southern Boulevard and west of State Road 7 behind the Lowe's, and it's adjacent to Anthony Groves or Victoria Groves, depending what you're familiar with it as, on the east and on the south. This preliminary plat was previously approved by this board on October 24th, 2019. And since that time, village staff has received a letter of objection from the Lake Worth Drainage District, dated October 18th, 2019, objecting to the plat and requesting revision to several sheets of the plat. Lake Worth Drainage District's requested revisions involve making references on the preliminary plat to Lake Worth Drainage District's canal and easement rights within the platted area, and that any roadways crossing Lake Worth Drainage District's canals would need permit approval from Lake Worth Drainage District. The preliminary plat has since been revised to address the Lake Worth Drainage District's comments. However, we were made aware today that they still had some issues to be worked out. The developer has advised the village that formal correspondence from Lake Worth Drainage District will be forthcoming, confirming that all of the comments identified in their October 18th, 2019 letter of objection have been resolved. Actually, what we've come up with, since we were notified late in the day today, is that we're going to work with the applicant and Lake Worth Drainage District between preliminary plat and final plat. So, village staff has reviewed the revised preliminary plat and still supports approval of the preliminary plat. However, there is a condition of approval that we would like to add to the approval of the plat. Condition of approval to address Lake Worth Drainage District's concerns. A warranty deed from TLH 34 Low Res LLC or its successors and assigns to the Lake Worth Drainage District shall be recorded prior to final master plat approval by the village council. The final master plat shall reference the recording information for this warranty deed. The warranty deed shall be reviewed and approved by the village attorney and Lake Worth Drainage District prior to recording, and the warranty deed shall be for a parcel of land containing approximately 0.664 acres, more or less, located within the Lake Worth Drainage District S4 canal, and to the east of the parcel with the parcel control number 7241440100003110. Like I said, we are recommending approval of the preliminary plat once again, with that condition of approval having been addressed prior to final plat.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, before you solicit comments from the board, as Kevin said, just one clarification on what he said. The letter of objection was received by the village after your last October Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, so we felt it prudent to bring this back to you with the limited consideration tonight just of that additional letter and resolution of the issues identified within that letter. As Kevin said, the condition of approval has been negotiated and approved by the district as of this afternoon, so once that condition is made part of your process tonight and subsequent village council action on Thursday night, a letter of no objection will be forthcoming, assuming that all this is resolved. So again, we are just here tonight with that limited issue because we were made aware of it after your last meeting. We wanted to bring it back to you so that you are aware and understand that the issues have all been resolved with the exception of the one that Kevin mentioned, which is addressed through the condition of approval.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
He is.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Do you wish to make any comments?
I do not, just to, should I be sworn in?
If you weren't, yes, name for the record.
Brian Tuttle.
Thank you, sir. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
It was, there's a issue as to the ownership of the land. We thought it was owned by one corporation. They think it's owned by another. We own both of them, so it's no big deal. We just got to correct the warranty deed and get it recorded, and we agreed to the condition of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to also point out something tonight, that we've got a lot of people here this evening. This doesn't pertain to you. If you're going to be talking tonight, you have to keep whatever you talk about to a 3-minute maximum, okay? I don't know how many of you are planning on speaking, but it's a maximum of 3 minutes if you do come up to the podium. And with that said, are there any comments from the public? Okay. Do we have any comments from commissioners? Ray?
No.
Nothing from me.
Bill? June?
No, no comments.
Nothing, no.
Okay. All right, then I need a motion.
And if I could, before a motion is made, Kevin read into the record the condition of approval, so any motion to approve could just be stated as read.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to make a motion for application number 17-0036 as read.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next application is number 18-0019.
Okay, if you direct your attention to the monitor, the site is highlighted in yellow. It is Pod 7 of the Southern Boulevard properties. It's approximately 10.174 acres, and it is slated to be a charter school that will go from K through high school. It's going to consist of 77,674 square feet of school buildings, parking lot, drive aisles, buffers, and signage, and a 9,574 square foot gymnasium building and associated landscaping. The applicant is requesting a special exception approval to allow a public academic institution, charter school, in the general commercial zoning district. These tracts consist of several single-family homes on large lots. Just to refresh your memory, this is the overall master plan for Southern Boulevard properties. Pod 7 is highlighted in blue. It's surrounded on the west by a multifamily, on the south by single family and the village's park dedication, and on the north it's surrounded by the commercial, and not sure what's on the east there. I think that's a parcel that's not included. That would be the Bell property that is not part of this project. So the parcel size is consistent with the CG zoning district for the site plan. It is 10.174 acres, which exceeds the minimum of 40,000 square feet. The site also exceeds the minimum parcel width of 150 feet frontage, and the proposed development is consistent with setback requirements for the general commercial zoning district. The pervious area, the proposed site plan provides 53% of the site is pervious area, which exceeds the village code requirement of 25%. Parking requirements, the proposed site plan provides adequate parking and stacking spaces on site for the proposed school use. Landscape areas, the proposed site plan complies with all aspects of the village's landscape code and the maximum building height. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story building with a height of 28 feet 9 inches as defined by village code, which falls within the height limitation of 32 feet required by the zoning district. So having said that, this is the site plan. North is to the this side of the page. Erica Boulevard runs along the north property line. There is a access to the site off of Erica Boulevard. The cars coming in to drop students off would come down this main aisle, and then they would start stacking. They stack all the way around the school, and there's a drop-off zone here, right here at the front. In addition, there is another entrance off of Lulf's Road, which is going to provide full access. The access off of Erica Boulevard is right in and right out only. The proposed project is proposed to be developed in up to 3 phases. The first phase will be a 40,532 square foot 2-story building, which houses the grades K through 8. And the second phase will be a 37,142 square foot 2-story high school building. The third and final phase will be a 9,574 square foot gymnasium. So we talked about the access. The applicant is also seeking architectural approval for building architecture, color and materials, landscaping, and proposed signage. The applicant has provided elevation drawings, color and material samples, and sign drawings for the commission's review. So here is the dumpster detail, bike racks, the access gate, standard parking detail, the signage that was talked about, the detail of the aluminum picket, and their chain link fence will be vinyl coated. So on to the landscape plan. The landscape plans, all landscape plans for single-family developments of 3 or more units, multifamily developments, and commercial and industrial mixed-use, public ownership, and private recreation developments that, pursuant to village code, require review and approval by the village council, shall, prior to consideration by the village council, be reviewed by the commission. The commission shall use the review criteria as set forth in section 2-75.28. When reviewing and considering the landscape plan, the commission shall make recommendations to the village council regarding landscape plans presented to the commission. The commission's recommendation regarding landscape plans shall be advisory only. The final decision-making authority shall be the village council. Landscape plans for individual duplex and individual single-family structures are exempt from review. So, landscape and site treatment. Where existing topographic patterns contribute to beauty and utility of a development, they shall be preserved and developed. Grades of walks, parking spaces, terraces, and other paved areas shall provide an inviting and stable appearance. Landscape treatment shall be provided to enhance architectural features, strengthen vistas, and provide shade. In locations where plants will be susceptible to injury by pedestrian or motor traffic, they shall be protected by appropriate curbs, tree guards, and other devices wherever possible. Where building sites limit planting, the placement of trees or shrubs in parkways or paved areas is encouraged. And screening of service yards or other places which tend to be unsightly shall be accompanied or accomplished by the use of walls, fencing, planting, or combinations of these. Screening shall be effective in winter and summer. In areas where general planting will not prosper, other materials such as fences, walls, and paving of wood, brick, stone, rocks, and gravel should be used. Exterior lighting, when used, should enhance the building design and the adjoining landscape. Lighting standards and fixtures should be of a design and size compatible with the building and adjacent areas. Lighting should be shielded and restrained in design. Excessive brightness, flashing lights, and brilliant colors should be avoided. So the applicant has provided the 25-foot buffer along the perimeter, the requisite vehicular use landscaping, landscaping up and around the building, which is called foundation plantings, and they've also provided some landscaping around their water retention body. The playfield is wide open with no landscaping for obvious reasons. They have provided bike racks around the lake there as well, and they've screened the bike rack area with landscaping as well. Finally, the architectural design and features. The Commission shall provide for architectural and aesthetic review with final approval authority when such structures are being renovated, and no other approvals would be required by Village Council pursuant to Village Code. The Commission's final approval is subject, however, to an appeal to Village Council, which must be filed within 10 days of the Commission's decision. The Commission shall use the review criteria set forth herein when reviewing and considering architectural designs and features. The Commission shall make recommendations to the Village Council regarding architectural designs and features other than color presented to the Commission. The Commission's recommendations regarding architectural designs and features other than color shall be advisory only, except as provided in subparagraph A1 above. The Commission shall use the review criteria found in Village Code Section 2-78.28D. Architectural style is not restricted. Evaluation of a project should be based upon quality of its design in relationship to surroundings. Structures shall be of proportionate size to be in harmony with permanent neighboring development. Components such as windows, doors, eaves, and parapets shall have balanced proportions in relationship to one another. Colors shall be harmonious. Bright or brilliant colors are encouraged to be used only for accent. Design attention shall be given to the mechanical equipment or other utility hardware on roofs, buildings, and at grades so as to screen them from view. Exterior lighting shall be part of the architectural concept, fixture standards, and all exposed accessories should be harmonious with building design, and monotony of design in single or multiple building projects shall be avoided. Variety of detail, form, and siding shall be used to provide visual interest in multiple building projects. Variable siding of individual buildings may be used and is encouraged to prevent monotonous appearance. So the applicant has designed a fairly typical look for a school. They do have windows in balanced proportion. They have parapets, projections and recession, all of which are encouraged by Village Code to add visual interest. They have used pastel colors. The color palette was in your packets. It's also here on the screen, a little bit harder to see probably on the screen than on paper. Village staff has reviewed the architecture and it meets the Village Code regarding these types of uses. And again, the sign is on this sheet as well. That slide does not belong. Okay. And that concludes the presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. They're also asking for a special exception use approval because public and private academic institutions are considered a special exception use in the general commercial zoning district. And the Planning and Zoning Commission shall have the following powers and duties. They need to make recommendations to the Village Council on all proposed special exception uses. The proposed special exception needs to be consistent with the standards of the Village Comprehensive Plan, needs to comply with development regulations of the Village Code, should not have adverse environmental impacts. It does not have adverse vehicular or pedestrian traffic impacts. It should not have an adverse impact upon public facilities. It should not have adverse impacts on adjacent properties. It should be compatible with the character and living conditions of the existing neighborhood in which it's located. It should not have an adverse impact on property values in adjacent areas, and it should not be a deterrent to the improvement require development of adjacent property, and the proposed special exception should not seriously reduce the quality or quantity of light and air available to adjacent properties, which cannot be prevented by the imposition of conditions. So those are all the conditions that the board is to consider. Village staff has looked at it for comprehensive plan and village code, and village staff is in support of the application as submitted with the conditions of approval that were attached to the staff report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is here as well, if you have any questions of them.
And Mr. Chair, while the applicant is approaching, I'll ask this board, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, I'll ask this board if there are any ex parte communications with regard to 18-0019 that need to be disclosed. Thank you.
So does the applicant wish to make any comments?
We have a brief presentation to provide, and then we are open to any questions from the commission. Good evening. My name is Jack Rice. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Nason Yeager. I'm here this evening proudly representing school property development. I'm joined by a whole crew of folks this evening, but you're mostly going to be hearing from Josh Nichols with Schmidt & Nichols, who is an urban planner. He's standing directly behind me. We're also joined by the founder and principal of School Property Development, Mark Rodberg, as well as Kendall Artuzzi with Academica, who may speak to the entity's actual charter, but I'll hand it over to Josh, who will speak in greater detail regarding the plans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Again, for the record, Josh Nichols with Schmidt Nichols, and just kind of go through some things. Kevin stole my thunder a bit on some of the elevation stuff, which is fine. He did a great job. We've been working with staff for a couple years now. This project, Pod 7, has been baked into the master plan for a couple years as well. And so I think this is kind of the culmination of what you saw with the plat and then also this final piece of the puzzle. So just to give you some quick histories, kind of started back in 2015 with the annexation. Moving forward, we've already got in place the village land use of commercial and then also the CG zoning. So that all happened in 2019. As you can see, which Kevin went through as well, but the location map, and again, I'm going to try to orient everything so that north is to the left of your screen. The proposed request is, as you heard, site plan, special exception, and architectural approval. Again, we want to make sure that we're addressing the special exception standards. We'll go through those at the end again, but one of the things that I think is important is for a public charter school, that they're allowed in all comp plan designations throughout the village. So I want to make sure that's in there. Also, charter schools in Florida, per state statute, are deemed as public schools, so they're one and the same in the eyes of the state statute. So I want to make sure that we are keeping that in mind. And then just a little bit about Somerset Academy. So this is a high-performing school. As you can see, they're one of the first charter school networks to receive accreditation by Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. There's also 72 schools currently in the network with 33,000 students, 1,500 teachers, and 6 counties as well as Texas, Nevada, and Washington. So, and then you can see on the right-hand side some of the accolades that they've earned as well. So again, this is a high-performing school that would be coming into the community here. Just a little bit more kind of about the programs that they offer. So you have ESE, gifted, the ESOL programs, before and after school tutoring, all the integrated technology. So it's a really good establishment in what they've done through the community. Here's just a quick look at some of the enrollment projections. Again, when this charter is issued by Palm Beach County, they have to submit these enrollment projections. So the structure is built for a 1,500 student capacity. And this is the projection over the years. So you don't start out with kids in every grade from K through 12. You can't do that. So it's as they build up and they move up in the grades, that's how you're filling those grades. And what you'll see, that plays into the phasing of the buildings as well. So we'll quickly discuss that. Just a quick school capacity analysis. So as you can see, in school year 2019, about 43% of the schools in the area within a 3-mile radius are 90 to 100% of capacity. That goes up to beyond 50% of those schools, again, within the 3-mile radius are above capacity. And then we kind of get more granular. So you can see on the bottom there, we have, which I guess is representative of the 50% and beyond of those schools that are already over capacity or right at maximum capacity. So again, this shows the need. This is taken right from Palm Beach County data that they provide. So getting back to the site plan and the proposed development. So access, as Kevin had mentioned, is the main access is off Erica Boulevard with a right in, right out only. Secondary access is from Luffs Road to provide full access and ease of maneuverability through the site. We have it in 3 phases. So the building, you'll see that in a minute. I won't go into it in this slide, but we talked about 1,500 students as the maximum capacity in terms of the size of the building and 80 staff. I think what's important to note too is that we have for the stacking, so there's a formula for how you develop your stacking numbers. We're required 90 vehicles for a stack, and we're at about 188. So we've doubled what the stacking requirement is. The parking requirement is 118 spaces, and again that is based on not only the faculty, but when you do get into the high school, you have to add parking spaces for those 11th and 12th graders too, because they do drive. So we're required 118, provided 183. And again, there's some additional spaces in there because one of the givebacks was that some of the overflow parking on evenings and weekends would be for some of the commercial pods. So they'd be able to push some of that overflow for employees and whatnot into this school lot. So we actually designed it so that way that front parking lot area that I'll show you won't be fenced in or secured, so they can access it when they need to. And then as far as security, there's trained SRO staff. Again, all the same security that are public schools that you'd think of as traditional, they have and are required by the state. So here's the master plan, just to kind of bring in the red are the commercial pods. We have residential in the orange, and then to our southeast is a park pod, and we're in the center there. Here's the proposed site plan. So again, phase 1 is the K through 8 building. Phase 2, you have grades 9 through 12, and then phase 3 is the gym. And we may build more than one of these phases at the same time, but we need the flexibility. What we don't want to do is build phase 2 when only half of the phase 1 building is occupied, right? You don't want to have an empty building sitting there for a year or two. It doesn't make sense. So as the enrollment builds, then we go into and looking at when phase 2 kicks in. So, but we want to have the flexibility, so that's why we phased it. Again, Kevin went through the color elevations. I do have a board. If you'd like me to pass that around, I can. Oh, you stole it from me. Yeah. So yeah, you can pass that around, but that's some of the, you can put your hands on some of the metal features and the colors. So those are the elevations, and this covers all 3 buildings and phases. And I'm going to turn it over to Jack again to just kind of go through the special exception standards.
Just to kind of reiterate what we heard earlier, the first criteria is consistency with the policies and standards of the village comp plan. You heard us discuss a little bit about that this evening in state statutes. Next is that it complies with the applicable development regulations for the village. Village staff has recommended approval of this project, and we have kind of tried to highlight the individual areas of the site plan that we felt there might be questions regarding. Next is that there are no adverse environmental impacts which cannot be prevented by the imposition of conditions. Fourth, that there are no adverse vehicular or pedestrian traffic impacts which cannot be generated by the imposition of conditions. We heard a little bit earlier this evening about the project is actually providing more than the amount necessary in terms of stacking, as well as sharing parking so that it becomes a real community asset and adds to the community. So it's certainly, we feel, not creating adverse vehicular or pedestrian traffic impacts. 5 is that there's no adverse impacts on public facilities, including but not limited to police and fire protection, drainage systems, refuse disposal, water, sewers, and schools, which can't be prevented by the imposition of conditions. As we stand here before you this evening, we are in conformance with the village code, as well as we've had no adverse comments from any of the commenting authorities. 6, that there are no adverse impacts on adjacent properties. or that it's detrimental to their use and peaceful enjoyment, which will cause objectionable noise and vibrations or fumes. We went over the site plan earlier and highlighted the buffering that's being provided by landscaping, as well as other ameliorative functions. 7, that it's compatible with the character and living conditions of the existing neighborhood in which it is to be located. You guys heard Kevin speak earlier about how the architecture is pretty typical of the types of schools we're seeing in this area. 8, that it does not have an adverse impact on property values in adjacent areas which cannot be prevented. Again, we're trying to give back to the community as much as possible in terms of both the design of the building and the facility, and so that it becomes a true community asset and adds to this community. 9 is that it's not a deterrent to the improvement or development of adjacent property in accordance with the applicable village code development regulations, which cannot be prevented by the imposition of conditions. Once again, we talked about how we're already working with neighboring property owners to create this as a valuable community asset. And 10 is that the use will not seriously reduce the quality or quantity of light and air available to adjacent properties, which can't be prevented by the imposition of conditions. And once again, this is a typical school. It's no more taller or shorter than other schools in the community, and we truly hope that it will be an asset to the community and just really improve the village going forward.
And I just wanted to add that we wanted to thank Kevin and staff. We've worked very closely with them, and I think we've come up with a really good plan. This is kind of as I said, the final piece to the puzzle. We're supporting staff's recommendation and in agreement with all of their conditions of approval. So we're here to answer any questions you may have. We also know that there were several cards submitted in support of the project. So if you wanted to do, they don't all have to talk or need to talk, but if you want to do is just a raise of hands in support, we can do that, whatever you so choose. So we're here for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public other than what have been presented to us so far? Okay.
And if you could, Mr. Chair, read off and call those folks to the podium, and they can either defer or they can make their comments publicly, but we need to go through because those cards have been submitted, all the public comments. As you said, everybody gets 3 minutes. If you wish to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Kevin Donovan? I'm sorry, it's Edward Ferguson. Okay. Mary Friel? Tim Forte?
Support. Not me to speak.
Rainey Foster? Robin Rozier? Cassandra Rodriguez? San Miguel, well, you write like I do. Who? She left. Lauren Hollander? I am here. Okay. In support. I'm deferring. Karen Hardy? In support. Courtney Hardy? I support. And Joseph Giacaruso? So there are no further comments? So then I go to our commissioners. Do you have any questions, Ross?
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. So one of the things that I always look for with new developments or new permits, new development in the village is the number of parking spaces. So I noticed, I've asked this question before, I'll ask it again. I noticed that there's a required number of spaces of 118, and we're providing 183, which is like more than, 50% more than is required. And I understand that it is to be shared with the commercial parking. Is there a need for the commercial parking? And the main reason I'm making the comment is that, I think, and I think a lot of people think that we have a lot more, way too much pavement in our cities in general, the roads and highways and the concrete versus the green space. And in some cases we can, rather than pave, we can provide parking without paving. It doesn't have to be paved to be a parking space. So that was just my question, why the need for that many more than is required?
Right, I'm not sure that the village code provides for grass parking for schools. It does for churches. So that's number one. Number two, when they get to high school, they will have sporting events and functions like proms and things of that nature, and that will attract more traffic than the normal school day would. So they have to provide the extra parking for those types of events because they don't want them parking all over the fields and tearing up the sports field. They would rather have the paved parking to accommodate those overflow situations, basketball games where the opposing team's fans come as well as the students' parents that attend the school, things of that nature. They will have events that exceed the normal parking requirement.
Yeah, and I understand that. I guess it just seems like in general the spaces we provide are a lot more, and they're so infrequent when we need those extra spaces that parking on the grass exceptionally for those events may not be a terrible thing. Now, I'm not for supporting parking on the playing fields, but just grass parking areas. They also do have alternatives to paved parking that can be considered, which are not, they don't get torn up as easily. So it's just something that I think the village, not really something that we need to discuss any further here, but just something, a point I wanted to make, and something that I think the village may want to consider for future code requirements, is to allow that flexibility. The other quick question related to that is the 188 parking spaces based on any sort of equation, or how did that number come up? How do we know that that is the number we need?
They base their number on the school, the state school requirements for parking. It's not something that's from the village code. The village code doesn't dictate a special number for schools, so that's how they came up with that number. And again, just to remind the board, they do exceed the pervious area requirements of 25% on site. Obviously, part of it is the play fields and the the wet detention area.
Okay. One other question is I know the main entrance is right in, right out. Is there any possibility that could accommodate a left turn in going westbound on Erica Boulevard to potentially alleviate issues? I don't know if there's been any...
That would complicate the stacking because you'd have people from both directions trying to enter the site and merge, and that's just not something that we wanted to entertain. It's not a good traffic situation when you have people coming from two directions trying to hit the same lane.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. We do have our traffic expert here this evening, if you want her to add a little bit to your question.
No, that's not necessary. No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray?
No comment.
Bill?
I have no comment.
June?
Quick questions. Estimated, how long do you think it's going to be to complete buildings 1 and 2? Give me a ballpark figure, what year?
I think building 1 will be in the next 18 months. That'll be complete. And then building 2 again is subject to enrollment. So we'd like to have it follow right behind, but we don't, it's difficult to tell at this point. Yeah.
So we ballpark figure.
Correct.
Anticipated class sizes, roughly?
Deferred.
Important. Square footage or students?
Students.
It's in accordance with the class size amendment.
With the class sizes?
18, 22, 25.
18,
I think we have
22, 25. Oh, okay.
Faculty, staff, 18 to 1, right?
Yeah, the ratios she's asking for.
Yeah, ratio for
It
students.
stays in compliance with that.
Okay. I do like your construction, your beautification of the building, and this is how we like to keep our village looking. When you are hiring local employees, will you be also looking in this area to hire employees from, this area, or where you're gonna be looking for? I mean, because, we want to keep them, we want to keep our residents employed if the availability is there.
Yeah, and we have Kendall Artusi from Somerset, so I'd like to turn it over to her to respond to that.
Good evening. My name is Kendall Artusi. I'm with Academica, the support service provider for the school, and we will absolutely be hiring from the area to service the students at the school. And we'll have approximately 80 employees at full capacity.
80, that's including teachers and aides or whatever else also? Or that's
Yes,
just the
ma'am.
teachers?
That's correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And I guess all the students, it'll be open for students from all areas or specific areas?
That's correct.
All areas?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's open enrollment.
Within the Palm Beach area?
Yes, within Palm Beach area and Palm Beach County, and then state statute does allow for over county line students to come from Upper County, but primarily they will come from within the county.
Oh, okay, good. All right, thank you very much.
Ross, you said you had one more question?
Yeah, so I did want to go back to and I hate to, dwell on this thing, but I'd like to ask, would the applicant consider changing some of the parking to a parking type that is stabilized and grassed, but not paved? So it's green, it looks like, rather than pavement.
My name is Mark Rodberg. I'm the applicant. The special requirements in education facility is part of the Florida Building Code. And they state that we have to provide one parking space per staff member, one parking space per 100 students who are enrolled for visitors. Of course, the handicap spaces. Then the minimum requirement is 1 per 10 students of driving age. If we've got 80 or 85 staff, and we've got setting aside 10 visitors for parents visiting, dropping off the lunch, or having a meeting, we're at 110. The unpredictability is the amount of student drivers. So if we have in the 11th and 12th grade 250 students, to presume that only 25 will drive in this particular region is on the low side with the affordability and families and 16-year-old drivers in the Western community here. I think that we'll be thankful for every spot that we have, and we have the essential of the events and the event type parking is more frequent. There's something going on there a couple times a week.
I understood, and I'm convinced that yes,
okay,
additional parking is needed. My question is, would the applicant consider changing the type of parking material to something other than asphalt? Because there are alternatives.
Well, we do that, and we do it with pervious concrete, and we do it with stabilized grade. The amount of traffic anticipated, we'll be utilizing these parking spots.
And would this village allow something other than asphalt is the other question.
That would require a variance because we don't currently allow anything but asphalt or cement parking.
And variances are not hard to come by on occasion.
They're not, but it's generally not something that the board recommends people pursue.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
I have a question too, if I may. And this could be addressed to any one of you. I read somewhere that you're going to have a similar school at Westlake, because we're talking about the western communities in the local area and the enrollment projection. Yeah, Mark, if you could please just expand on that.
The proposed school, to the best of my knowledge, that I know about, is a private school.
Okay.
It's a soccer school. It'll be attracting international and out-of-state, private with dorms on 90 acres.
Right.
So I know of no charter schools slated to go into the Westlake area.
So my question is that that won't impact your enrollment in any way?
No, it's a,
Okay.
it's a different population.
That was my concern.
Different demographic, it's a
Right.
completely different thing.
Right. Thank you.
This would be a little neighborhood school.
Oh,
Lot of
good.
walkers.
It looks good. Everything looks
People that's
good.
coming to live in the apartments will stay
Nice.
as permanent residents, in my judgment.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. No further comments? Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve application 180019.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that will conclude our board business for tonight. Our next meeting is Tuesday, January 28th. And we're going to be moving on to our local planning agency meeting. The room clear first?
Two ordinances.
Oh.
Yeah, they're on the LPA.
Yeah, I know.
So you guys see where I'm coming from a lot.
Yeah, but you can't change those. Those are rules for public schools, you see.
I know.
No, but I'm talking about the number of parking spaces.
If we could hold conversation, we are still on the record, so just,
I'm sorry, mate?
we are still on the record, so just be careful of outside conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't work-
Right.
I thought we were adjourned.
No,
No,
we're
no,
not done.
no,
We're
we're not
waiting for
adjourned.
folks.
All right.
I didn't hear a motion for adjournment. If we
I
could
did-
have that.
I
Did
did.
you? You did?
Yeah. Did you actually motion?
Got quiet in here.
Okay.
Well, are we going to let the record show that we have the same commissioners from planning and zoning to local planning agency?
Mr. Chairman, if you could call this local
Right.
planning agency
The
meeting to
roll call.
order, and then we'll
Yes.
go through the roll call.
I'd like to call the local planning agency meeting to order on this Monday, December 16th. And do we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance again?
No, I
We,
think,
we don't, and we can actually let the record reflect that the same planning and zoning
Commissioners are
commission meeting, commissioners are on the dais.
Okay, then I need to get approval of the minutes from the October 22nd LPA meeting. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 5-0. And then our items for discussion tonight. First one is ordinance number 999, proposing to amend Chapter 22, subdivision of land at Section 22-55.
If it's okay with the chairman, I am going to present both of the ordinances at once. They deal with separate chapters, but they basically mirror each other.
Yeah.
So, ordinance 999 it deals with private on-site recreation and open space facilities within multifamily residential developments. Under Section 2255 of Village Code, proposed multifamily residential developments. Example, those located in RMU, RV6, RT8, RM9, RM12, and RM14, and MXD zoning districts. Generate a park land dedication requirement based on the projected population for the development. Multifamily residential developers may satisfy this requirement by dedicating public parkland to the village, paying fees to the village in lieu of the dedication, or undertaking some combination of both. Multifamily residential developers may receive partial credit toward their park land dedication requirement, not to exceed 50% if they provide private on-site recreational amenities within the development. However, current code does not require that multifamily residential developers provide any private recreational amenities on site. Instead, these developers could meet their recreation requirements solely by dedication of land to the village, payment of fees in lieu thereof, or both. Village staff has reviewed this process and believes that multifamily residential developments needs some private on-site recreational amenities such as tot lots, pools, basketball courts, and the like. These on-site amenities allow residents to recreate within their own community without having to drive or walk long distances for recreational opportunities. On-site amenities also alleviate the burden placed on existing village park and recreation facilities, and therefore staff is proposing to amend current code as follows: to require that 50% of the land to be dedicated to the village as public open space facilities for park and recreational purposes instead be provided as private on-site open space facilities for park and recreational purposes within the proposed multifamily residential development. Provide that no dedication of parkland to the village or payment of fees in lieu thereof can be substituted for the 50% on-site private recreation requirement. Provide that credit may be given for the 50% park and recreation open space facilities provided on-site toward the overall land dedication requirement, and provide that the remaining 50% of land to be dedicated to the village as public open space facilities for park and recreation purposes be dedicated or paid by for fees in lieu thereof pursuant to the criteria contained in current code, and provides that the 50% on-site requirement does not apply to those multifamily residential developments of less than 3 units. Examples, a single-family lot or duplex. Variances to the village recreation requirements. Village staff believes that the recreation requirements contained in section 2255 are necessary to maintain the health, safety, and welfare of village residents and to provide sufficient parkland and recreational facilities in order to comply with the village comprehensive development plan. Therefore, village staff is proposing to amend section 2255 to clarify that variances to this section shall not be permitted. Village staff is recommending approval of that ordinance, and it also would make the same changes at section 2675.4 of Village Code under Ordinance 1000. Village staff is also recommending approval of that ordinance. I believe you're going to probably vote on each ordinance individually.
Question, Kevin, the way I've read all this, my understanding that we're kind of throwing it back on them to create these spaces within their development. And again, it's going to take stress off our roads. It's going to take stress off of a lot of our amenities.
Right.
Yeah, I'm totally for that. So, discussion, Ray?
I like it.
Yeah, that's good. I like it a lot. Bill?
Yeah.
June?
No questions, I like it.
Ross?
Yeah,
I think that's an easy one. So, can I get a motion for ordinance 999?
If we could, before we motion, I don't believe there's any public left, but could we solicit public comment just in case?
Public comment.
I'm sorry. I like to skip that one when the room's empty.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I see there is no public comment. So can I get a motion for ordinance number 999?
Make a motion for ordinance number 999.
I'll second.
To approve it, I assume?
Approve,
Okay.
yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, then I need a motion for ordinance number 1000.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 1000 as read.
And if we could, just before I hear a second, still no public, but if we could just solicit again.
No comment from the public?
No.
Thank you.
And I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Make a motion that I accept the adjournment.
Second one.
All right, and happy holidays to everybody.
Yes.
Just so everyone knows, we're going there, we have refreshments and cake.